Welcome to Foundational You with Dr. Dean Hackett, the home of biblical teaching and cultural impact. We are so glad that you joined us for today's podcast. You can find out more about Dr. Dean, read his blog, and find more episodes at fdeanhackett.com. Now for today's episode.
Allowing the invisible chains of socialist, communist, and dictatorial slavery was totally unacceptable to the leadership and the people of Great Britain, and was unthinkable to the President, the Congress, and the people of the United States in the 1930s and 40s. Thus, we entered into World War II to defend liberty. To defend liberty. As Winston Churchill had said to the British Parliament and the House of Commons, May 13th, 1940, when he said to them that our aim is to have victory at all cost, victory in spite of all terror, victory however long and hard the road may be, for without victory there is no survival. Let that be realized. No survival for the British Empire. And the same as they were facing Nazi Germany in Western Europe, the United States was facing the very same from the Empire of Japan. And on December 8th, 1941, President Franklin Roosevelt said very similar words to the Joint Congress of the United States and to the American people when he said, no matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win through to absolute victory. And why? Because he said, we well understand the implications to the very life and safety of our nation. Life without liberty was unthinkable and unimaginable. It still is. It still is. It is still unthinkable to live without liberty. It's unimaginable. Make no mistake, there are still socialist, communist, dictatorial powers that would steal liberty from the United States of America, from Great Britain, from the people of Western Europe, from as many nations as possible. Israel is facing that same challenge right now, right at this very moment. We're watching the same pattern play out in Israel that played out in Western Europe and the Nazi Empire, and in Asia and in the Pacific from the Empire of Japan. Hamas just violated yet another peace agreement, as they have done time after time after time. The Palestinians have never once kept a peace accord, going all the way back to 1948 and the partition agreement that the UN wrote, to 1978 and the Camp David Accords with President Jimmy Carter. The Palestinians have never kept one peace accord. It has been broken time after time. The really major ones that we can think of course, would be Israel's War of Independence, the War of 1967, the Six-Day War, the Yom Kippur War of 1973, and now October 7th, 2023. Unimaginable. They have never said, the Palestinians have never said they want a two-state solution. The whole idea of partition and a two-state solution has been foisted upon them by the United Nations and by the leadership of the United States of America. The Palestinians have never once said they want a two-state solution. Instead, what they have continued to say over and over again is from the river to the sea. It is written in the Palestinian Liberation Organization Charter. It's written in the charter of Hamas. It is written in the charter of Hezbollah. It is written in the charter of the Muslim Brotherhood. What is that is in all of those documents? It's all the same thing. Since the charter for the Palestinian Liberation Organization was written by Yasser Arafat and the Prime Minister of Egypt in 1964, there has always been in there, and it is to this day, the statement that Israel must be driven into the sea, that the nation of Israel will cease to exist, and there will be genocide to the Jewish people. That is their goal. That is their aim. That has always been their aim. But the media is diligently and effectively playing the old bait and switch game. They don't want us to remember all the things that took place. They don't want us to remember that in every case it has been the Arabs that have been the aggressors. In every case. They don't want us to remember that the Arabs were the aggressors on October 7th, 2023. Instead, they want us to remember a rewriting of what actually took place. Imagine now, the Jewish people will no longer just point back to Auschwitz or Birkenau or to Treblinka, but now they're going to point to October 7th, 2023, and the horrors that took place. You know, when you think about this proportionately, if you compare October 7th, 2023 to September, 9/11, when you compare those two proportionately, it would be like on September of 2001 in New York, in Pennsylvania, and in Washington, D.C., 41,000 people died. Not the 3,000, but 41,000. That is proportionately what happened in Israel on October 7th, 2023. Imagine that. Imagine that. When you think about that, it is staggering. And what would be the response of the American people if 41,000 of our people had been murdered by Arabs flying airplanes into the Twin Towers, into the Pentagon? The airplane crashed in the fields in Pennsylvania. What would be the response of the people? It would be the same as the response that's going on in Israel right now. But what are we seeing? We are seeing the very natural outcome of 50 years, 60 years of postmodern ideology that calls good evil and evil good. It started out with everything is relative. There is no absolute truth. There's no absolute reality. There's no absolute right or wrong, until now good is evil and evil is good. And we're seeing that played out in its worst proportions right now, as across our nation and around the world, people are calling Hamas good and Israel the evil perpetrator. The world court wanting to charge Israel with war crimes. Israel with war crimes. Wait a minute. Have you seen the videos? Have you gone beyond what you've just seen on the Alphabet News and Fox News and really dug deep to see what went on? How the Palestinians took babies and put them on the end of sabers and danced around cheering and laughing? Have you watched the videos where they locked teenage girls into a room, tossed a grenade in there, and as the grenade was exploding and the girls were dying from loss of blood and the injuries from the grenade, they burned them alive? Have you seen the reports of them taking babies and putting them in ovens alive and baking them to death while they forced the parents to watch and then murdered the parents? I'm telling you, war crime after war crime after war crime, done not by the Israelis, by the Palestinians, but we're calling evil good and good evil. And folks, we must recognize terrorism. And then trying to make a peace accord, our government and the UN is trying to force Israel to make a peace accord. Why? When has the Palestinians ever kept a peace accord? Never. Just a few days ago, the ceasefire to allow humanitarian aid and to release the hostages. And what happens? Well, in the first 2 days, you had Hamas terrorists attack Jews at one of the gates of Jerusalem, killed 6. And then you had them just a few days ago firing rockets again into southern Israel. And we're going to make a peace accord with them? How do you do that? You see, that is what the Muslims call a hunda. And that is, it gives them enough time to regather, to strengthen themselves, to strengthen their fortresses, and so that they can attack even harder the next time than they did the first time. Trust me, they want to make an even more severe attack on Israel than they have already done. From the river to the sea, that is their position. Iran, Hezbollah, Hamas, the Muslim Brotherhood, they are the terrorists that would steal the liberty of Israel. I challenge you to look historically when Israel was in Gaza and they built the vineyards and they built the greenhouses and they provided employment for the Palestinians. And it was prospering. It was prospering. But when Israel was forced out, in 2001, 2002, something like that, when they were forced out and they left, all those greenhouses have been destroyed. The employment has been destroyed. From the time Israel became a nation in 1948, Arabs have always had a place in the Knesset. They've always had a place in the business sector. They've always had a place in the neighborhoods. And by the way, Israel did not steal the land. They purchased the land. Israel is not the occupier. Israel is the rightful owner of the land. We're going to look at that in our next podcast, and how exactly is Israel the true possessor of the land, and how God has given that to them, and how that the world is distorting it, how that postmodernism is distorting it and making them evil and actually making the terrorists good. But dear ones, the goal and objective of the terrorists is not peace. It has never been peace. They have never wanted peace, and they have never wanted a two-state solution. They have always wanted genocide of the Jewish people, and they have always wanted Israel to be driven to the sea, not a two-state solution, a one-state solution, with no Jews and no Israel. That is the truth of what is happening. And that is why Israel is in a fight for her liberty. The Jewish people are in a fight for their liberty. And dear ones, every child of God needs to be on the right side of this matter. God bless you. Thank you for joining me in this podcast. Next podcast, we're going to pick up from here, and we're going to look at what is the root of the problem. What is the root, not just the cause that's being publicized, what's the root of the problem, and what is going to be the final outcome. God bless you. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to you joining me next time.
Thank you for joining us today. This Christ-centered biblical training is a ministry of Spirit Life Ministries. We hope that you are blessed by this podcast and share it with your friends and colleagues. For more information or questions for Dr. Dean, please contact us at the website fdeanhackett.com.